Welcome. You're listening to My Magical Horse, the podcast, where we are getting curious about animal communication. I am your host, Jordan Banks, and if you are desiring a more magical connection with your own horse, you are in the right place. Join us as we rediscover our sense of wonder, experience the joy, and feel the magic that horses can and do bring to our lives each and every day. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Now let's get started. Welcome back to My Magical Horse, the podcast. Today, I am so excited to introduce Mariana Nagy-Reis, who is a beautiful, exotic, intuitive goddess from Brazil. She also just happens to be a scientist with a degree in biology and a PhD in ecology. I wanted to welcome you, Mariana, and thank you for coming. I got to meet Mariana for the first time at Elements of Connection, and I mean for the first time, like I didn't know who she was at all until Elements of Connection. And she drove down from Canada, and she and I chatted a few times at the beautiful event that we had down in Aptos that Amber Leidick had put together down there. And this was actually 2 years ago this month that we met. So we'll dive into this, but I'm working with Mariana right now as we speak. So I'm in her mentorship program. And welcome, Mariana. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I feel like I've been um, behind the scenes, kind of like watching the evolution and the growth of Magic Horse, and I just love everything that you do. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. I know. When I met you, I didn't even have my magical horse yet. Um, it's just been an evolution. And I don't remember, did you have Alchemy Queen already when we met, or did that come later?
It was driving back home, the 2 day drive from California back to Canada. On my driveway back home, that's when I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like, this is what I'm going to be doing with Amelia. And that was kind of the inception of Alchemy Queen. So it was just later that year that I actually got clarity of like what that would look like and started the creation process of forming Alchemy Queen. But it was like that event was the inception of Alchemy Queen. So
Really?
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that is so cool. Yeah, mine came in later when I was doing like one-on-one sessions with Shaylee and Amber. That the idea for my magical horse, yeah, was born. So that's so cool that having an elements of connection for you. I did want to talk about elements of connection because that was such a pivotal moment for so many people that I met there. What led you deciding to go to elements of connection?
Yeah. So the year before, so Elements of Connection was in June. So the December prior to that, or actually the December 2021, I had an accident with my mare Amelia, and I broke my knee. And it was a very, very, very complicated surgery. I remember not knowing if I was going to be able to walk again. The doctors didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again. So it was a very just traumatic experience in general. And that it just, there was like this huge disruption of my relationship with Amelia. So the following months after that accident, it was just like organically me trying to reconnect with her, but also like not knowing how. And when I saw about the clinic, the Elements of Connection clinic, it it was very interesting because it was a very general description of a clinic, but there was something about the clinic that I just felt a pull, like, oh, I need to go to this. And I felt like this is, the beginning of my journey reconnecting with Amelia. That's
Mm.
all I knew at the time. Um, and it was obviously so much more than that, but that's what it led me to go into the clinic. So it wasn't necessarily anything logical about the clinic. It was the feeling that I had as I read the words of the description and the pull of this is what it is. Like this is what I need right now. It was
That's
very intuitive.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's very intuitive, and that's interesting because that's exactly what happened for me too. And I had read it, and I honestly, it was the night before we had to like send in our applications to go, and all of a sudden I realized that I needed to go. Like it wasn't even really on my radar. I mean, I'd seen the ads, but I was like, and the night before I was like, oh my gosh, I think I have to go to this. And so I sent in my application. So anyway, that's pretty cool. And then yeah, and then ironically, we ended up in frequency together. Let's see, I don't remember how long ago, somewhere in between in the last 2 years, you and I ended up in frequency with Felicity Davies together as well, which was a course based on how to develop your business. And actually, so my idea for my magical horse had already come in at that point. And then I thought, okay, I'll do this class with Felicity just to see where I could develop it from here. And then you were in there as well. And it was exciting to see you because I hadn't really been in touch with you since Elements of Connection, but since Frequency, we've actually been in touch quite a bit. So, talk about that maybe and how Alchemy Queen, if you want to just go into a little bit about Alchemy Queen and how you came up with the name for your business,
Mhm.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So driving back from elements of connection, like at the elements of connection, like I was noticing like the horses energetically mirroring their humans. And I remember at a point at the clinic, I asked Shaylee, I said, hey, I think I'm noticing like this mirroring happening like at an energetic level. Like how often do you see in your work the horses mirroring their humans? And she said, actually, like quite a lot. Like, yeah, that's a thing. And from that moment, that's when I started connecting because at the time I was really diving into Jungian psychology and the mirroring that happens like at the human level, but I wasn't aware there was like this mirroring that could happen at the animal level. And
Mm,
that's when in that clinic, like things clicked and I noticed like the connection between the human psychology component with the animal behavior component. And that's driving back home from that clinic when I was talking to my partner. I said, this is what I'm going to be doing with Amelia. Like there will be a time, I don't know when, that I will be essentially working with people to really dive into that connection between them and their animals and how their animals are mirroring energetically things that are going on inside of them, right? Inside of their humans.
yeah.
And so leading like it was kind of like okay, then I got home and I was at the time I was more doing again like the Jungian psychology component of all of this, so more the human side of things. So I was doing a lot of readings, but always like reading the person's energy through like tarot readings and that kind of stuff. So that's where I felt comfortable starting Alchemy Queen. And that's how I kind of like it just organically I started offering people like reading, energetic readings, but I wasn't necessarily working with animals at that point because I thought, well, like I don't have like an animal communication like certification. I don't think I practice enough. I don't even know like how to bring in the animal component. It's almost like I have to embody that myself before I even bring that into my business. And I felt like Amelia was organically like bringing me that. Like she was essentially, I call her my psychic master because I feel like she's the teacher. Like she's the one who have taught me how to use my psychic abilities, how to even make sense of what's going inside of me. So she is that mirror, right? That I
Hmm.
saw in elements of connection with between the horse and their person. Like that is what I started like really seeing in my relationship with Amelia, and I started allowing that to unfold. So parallel to that, like I was doing these readings with people, and it was so interesting. Like with the name Alchemy Queen, I didn't know what like I was like, okay, maybe it's time for me to give my business a name, and then I didn't know what like what should be the name. And I kind of channeled, not kind of, I did channel Alchemy Queen. And I was like, oh, that is interesting, but I don't know if I like I don't want to call myself a queen. And there was this huge, like it was so interesting because Amelia, like her communication style is like really like in your face. So she came and like, no, 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 Alchemy Queen doesn't mean that you're calling yourself a queen. Alchemy Queen, and then she explained to me the concept of Alchemy Queen, which is Alchemy Queen is it's kind of like this archetypal energy. So this Alchemy Queen archetypal energy is the energy of you being your own queen. You embodying that queen archetype and becoming the queen of your inner alchemy. So the way she explained to me was you're Alchemy Queen, I am Alchemy Queen, and everyone that crosses our path, they become Alchemy Queen. And this is why the name of this business is Alchemy Queen. It's because we are gonna essentially help people remember how to be the queen of their inner world. And that for me was like, like, okay, I take it. Alchemy Queen it
Yeah.
is.
How for for people who are newer to this, can you explain just even what alchemy is?
Hmm. Yeah, so alchemy is essentially the process of transmutation, which is very similar to transformation. But transformation, you transform something into something else, and you still can go back to the older form. With transmutation, you transform something into something new, and once you're that something new, you cannot go back to that old version. So with the alchemy, the way that I use in my work through Alchemy Queen is really that transmutation of um, you know, all the old beliefs and old forms of way of being to this new version that is closer to your higher self or to your authentic self. So this is the process of alchemy that I work the most in my work. And it's the process of really letting go of the things that are more like ego based or things that are just not aligned with who you are. It's just like things that you were told you have to do or things that you thought you should do in order to conform to society or whatever, right? So it's kind of that transmutation process that takes you closer and closer and closer to your authentic self.
Yeah, I love that, which is obviously the path and the journey that led me to you. And as far as working with you one-on-one, um, talk a little bit too about the pomegranate because that is
Oh, yeah.
your part of your logo is the pomegranate and also when I can't remember, I think when I was in the intuitive equestrian with Felicity, because I was in two classes with her at the same time, in one of my energy healings with her, and I knew the pomegranate was part of your thing, but I had no idea why. I didn't know anything about it, but one of the gifts that I got in one of our healings was a pomegranate, and anyway, I would love to hear you explain the significance of the pomegranate and why you chose to
Yeah.
incorporate that into your logo.
Yeah. Well, when you, well, I feel like I have to go back to the journey where like it started with me breaking my knee and not knowing if I was going to be able to walk. And that journey of it was kind of like it's really hard sometimes to put in words like what that actually meant to me because I felt like it was much deeper than just breaking my knee. It was the almost like the disruption of the ideas of who I thought I was, and
Mm.
really the breakdown of even the sense of identity that I had at the time. And when I kind of lost that sense of identity and lost that sense of knowing who I was, that was the time where I started really thinking about my life up until that point and what I was doing in terms of like personal and professional work and how much that was not necessarily in line with what I wanted to create or who I was. It was kind of like that was like the wake up, right? It was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, because it made me reflect, like, if I cannot walk, like, what if? Like I'm really like I from this point on, like I'm not able to walk anymore. Like, what does that mean in terms of like achieving my goals, achieving my dreams? So it just made me realize how much I wasn't living my dreams, right? So so that was the moment where I had to really go like inside myself to find the answers that I was looking. Okay, what do I want? Like, who am I? Like those very core questions around who am I and what am I doing on earth, essentially, right? So it's
Yeah.
that trajectory.
Can I ask? I want to
Mhm.
insert real quick. So, also,
Mhm.
I wanted to bring up your background. We can go back to the pomegranate in a second, but that you are a scientist and you have a
Mhm.
PhD. Were you working as a scientist when you got injured? Was,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so yeah, if you want to even expound on what that looked like from being a real science-based person, and what is your PhD in? It's biology or?
Yeah, so I have an undergrad in biology and then the master's and PhD in ecology, which is essentially, um, well, weaving in animal behavior and animals'
Okay.
relationship with the land, with humans. So it's that really that interconnectedness between nature, humans, and animals, but
Okay.
through a scientific lens, right? So as I was doing that work, so it was like years of strictly like scientific work, research on the relationship between animals and humans. Like I felt like I was in the beginning it was very exciting, but it got to a point where I was seeing things, like witnessing things that I didn't think that science alone could explain.
Mm.
And it was just like a felt sense, like there's more here that science isn't like explaining, or it can't explain just by science. And then the like when you're working with science, there is like this structure, and it's very inflexible in how you're able to explore the world. So I felt like I was very limited in terms of what I could or what I could not explore. And I felt like I'm, you know what, like I'm much more curious about what's happening outside this box, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of and then breaking my knee, physically not being able to go anywhere, and taking time off work because I was in so much pain. Like that was the time, like literally, that allowed me to go into the things that science can't explain, and the felt sense of things and the intuitive sense of things, right? So then in my journey of who am I, what am I doing on earth, and going inside to look for answers, like that's also in parallel to that, looking for answers outside of science, outside of that box that I was
Hmm.
working with as a scientist, right?
So, so anyway, yeah, to kind of circle back into the pomegranate thing. So
Mhm.
you dove in, you did this, you were talking about that you studied archetypes for a while and that you were focusing more on people than on animals initially, correct? And
Mhm.
that was kind of happening while you were recovering from the the knee injury, or what did?
Yeah, yeah. So with the science background, I had this background with like animals and their relationship with people and the land. But I also had with my undergrad, I also did research with comparative psychology. So with comparative psychology, I looked into both like humans and animal psychology and the parallels between them at the psychological level. So that was something that I did in my undergrad, but then in going into grad school, I moved more into like ecology and that kind of realm. And then when I broke my knee, it was like, oh, remember comparative psychology? Like that was so fun. Like, what about, as I'm diving deeper within myself, what about that comparative psychology and psychology? And that's when, through this journey going inside, like I actually got in contact with a mentor who is a Jungian psychologist.
Mm.
And so I had many, 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 many trainings and courses with her where um, she taught me how, for example, to use the understanding of Jungian psychology and archetypes to understand ourselves better. because archetypes are these universal forms of understanding of different parts of ourselves. So, for example, one of the aspect is the goddess archetypes. So, for example, Persephone, Athena, Artemis, like those are figures in human history that are actually parts of the woman's nature. So
Mm.
every single woman on earth, they have an Athena, they have a Persephone, they have an Artemis within themselves. So as I was studying that and I was understanding these different components of myself that are represented through these goddess archetypes universally, and that they are in different cultures, but they have different names, but they're exactly archetypally the same goddesses. That's when my journey with Persephone became the central, I don't even know, like the central component of my attention because, and then Persephone um, is the goddess that is represented by the pomegranate, which we're gonna get there.
Mhm. Okay.
um, so as I'm studying these different aspects of the women's psyche, and I'm, oh my gosh, there is this, thing called Persephone, this goddess called Persephone. And then I'm looking at Persephone's story and I'm seeing that Persephone goes in her story to the underworld. And it's through her journey in the underworld that she discovers who she is and she comes back as a queen. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting because this looks kind of like the journey that I'm going right now. I'm going within myself to this underworld, which is like your inner self, to figure out who I am. So hopefully I can come out back as a queen of my inner world because now I know who I am, right? So I started studying Persephone's journey as a tool and a mechanism of me understanding myself and my journey better, and and from that getting the healing that I needed. And it was interesting because then I'm diving this into this journey and archetypally understanding what I'm going through. At the same time, Amelia is like my psychic master, right? Teaching me how to then play this dynamic between this understanding of um this goddess archetype with what's being presented in front of me. So that is kind of the journey that I had to go through. That at the end, like as I'm like going navigating this and going through this, that's when I start to see portals. I start to see, interact with the world in a totally different way because I had to shut the science off a little bit just for, that window of time that the other part of my brain allowed to expand. And then suddenly, yeah, I'm seeing portals. I'm witnessing things, weird things with the lights. Then I'm receiving messages from my dog who passed away, like all this stuff. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? Right. So
That was
this is
happening.
dancing.
Was that happening before Elements of Connection?
That was happening before Elements of Connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how long had you had Amelia? For anybody listening, Amelia's her
Mhm.
horse. How long had you had her before all of that started happening?
Yeah. And that's again like the funny or the beauty of all. Like at the 1 year mark that I had brought her into my life, that's when we had the accident. It was the day of.
Oh,
So it was
wow.
like our celebration anniversary day.
It was the 1 year mark that
It
you,
was
and
the
then you had the
1 year
injury.
mark.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
it
the
was an
first
injury.
year, so the first year was just like me like doing science and working with her or building my relationship with her based off that very rigid structure of training, right?
Yeah. And you were doing dressage, right? You were,
Mm-hmm.
my brain's thinking of a lot of things all at once. It's like, which question to ask you next?
Hello,
Um,
I'm going all over the place, so
yeah, no, it's good. So you said that she is your psychic master and that you started to like everything that you've developed for Alchemy Queen was stuff that she was leading you to and showing you. What did that look like? I mean, did you consider yourself an animal communicator prior to this, or like all of a sudden you're just getting messages and like how did you know? I mean, I guess to people who are newer to the whole concept of animal communication, like how did you know it was her and how did it even look? Like what? type of intuitive messages were you getting? Because I know that, there's different types of way the messages can come through. What did it look like for you?
Yeah, that is a really interesting question because at the time, so it was like the first year was very methodical, very raw, or very like rigid. So no animal communication whatsoever, at least not to a level of that hit my awareness that it was happening, right? And then essentially with the accident, my understanding of that was Amelia really saying, no, this is not what we are meant to do. Like I didn't come to your life to study dressage, like it came to your life so you could really figure out who you are and we can build this entire new thing together, right? So it was like that was the her way of like really bringing the disruption that was needed for me to even evaluate my life and bring the shift that was needed for me to wake up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before that, like as a child, like for me it was really natural to communicate with animals. Like I would spend most of my time with animals. Like I would run away from my house and be in the neighbor's house with a dog that supposedly would attack everyone but not me, right? So like I was just like naturally communicating with animals, but like you don't think that that's animal communication, like you don't label as a child, right? You just do it.
Right.
And then going into science, that's when it was like, oh, that was yeah, that was nonsense, right? Because science can't explain. So that's when I shut down completely that part of my ability. But then it was interesting because a lot of my field work, so my field work was with a group of monkeys. So I would spend the entire day watching the monkeys and writing down like what they were eating, what they were doing. And although I was very like much rigid into like the protocols of the research, I was noticing like almost like this felt sense of like what was happening at a deeper level in the
Mm.
forest. Even like the days that I didn't know where they were, like I felt like I was guided. Oh, they are here, and then I would just go and yeah, they were there, right? But again, I didn't think of it in the context of animal communication or intuitive abilities. I just thought of I didn't even think about it. Like I just let it happen, but without like calling it anything or labeling it a certain way.
Yeah.
Um, and then because of the structure around science and having to be in a certain way, that for me was the thing that was like so like it was like suffocating because then you're seeing that things are like in a much broader, incredible, like magical way, and you're like, no, I can't go there because I have to be in this box, right? um, but then because you're confined in that box, then your ability to receive messages, to communicate, like that's also in a box, right? Because you're not allowing yourself to go anywhere broader than that.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I paused that work because of my injury and allowed myself to see these other things, that then it just exploded because those things were like in me for so long, just waiting to be allowed out of that box, that when that happened it just like boom. So so it was very confusing in the beginning because it was everything at the same time, like, and then the portals and then the lights and then I'm seeing chakras and then I'm like this and that and then I'm receiving messages, but I don't even know that I'm receiving messages. I suddenly like there's like this overload of information coming my way and I'm not even sure what that is. So in the beginning it was like, what the heck is happening? Like I would
Wow.
wake up in the middle of night with like my nose bleeding and like blood everywhere.
What?
Like yeah, it was like pretty intense. Like my body was like, I cannot do this any longer, like this is like being really too much. Because it was like, okay, channels are open, party, hello. I'm like, no, 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 there needs to be like some boundary around like what can come in, what cannot come in, and that's what Amelia really taught me. Like, okay, you can
Wow.
have your intuition, you can have your channels open, but you need to really work with the energy around and within you so it's not an overload of information and stuff all the time, right? So you're mastering your abilities and you're saying yes to what you actually want to receive, no thank you for what you don't want to receive. So you're not like receiving stuff all the time, like going, for example, to the supermarket, or interacting in with people in that way. Like for me, it was like too much, because then I'm like sensing everything from everyone at the same time. So so that's how Amelia really helped me. Like she, like being with her, like she's so, I feel like all horses are very like honest, like they see everything and they show you everything. If you have your eyes closed, you're not going to see what they have to share. If you have your eyes open, gosh, like you're going to see so much about you, right?
Yeah.
So interacting with her was, she would just say, "Hey, lady, that's too much. What the heck?" Right? She would not even allow me get close to her with all that energy,
Yeah, right.
right?
So you're saying,
So
so like she kind of helped you learn how to dial it all back in, or like, because otherwise she wasn't allowing you into her space. Like,
yeah, like not only that, but like everything, like and that's when like elements of connection kind of, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I was having a hard time with trust with her, and then suddenly like this horse hates me because I'm too much for her, right? And that's when with the elements of connection was like, well, maybe if I go there, maybe I know how to fix this, how to connect with her.
yeah.
um
Did it help?
and
I mean, do you feel like it helped just going
yeah,
to the connection?
totally, because it was, well, first of all, like that's when I met Shaylee. Like she was the first animal communicator who I've ever met, and that's when I
Really?
learned that there is such a thing as animal communication.
Really? Oh, wow.
So up
Okay.
until this point, I'm connecting with animals, receiving information, all of it, but I have no idea what any of that is. And then I go to element of connections, and then Shaylee does that practice where she's guiding us through that experience, connecting with our horses. And then Amelia is very clear, like, this is what's happening, lady.
Wow.
Actually, the very first, remember that very first circle that we had? It was the first day,
Yeah.
first thing that we've done together. Like we've sat all in a circle, we shared, and then at the end of that circle, so it's like the very first thing in the clinic. At the end of that circle, Shady comes to me and she says, "So is your mare, like, do you have a bay mare?" And then she describes Amelia, and I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like screaming, like since we stepped like foot in this ground, that she has something really important to you. And then we sat down and she shared every, like Amelia saying like, "Hey, this is, everything that we've gone through to this point is for us to grow, is for this next thing that we're gonna do together." And then like everything like so clear, and I'm just like crying, because I even like at that time I was like, do I need to sell this horse? Right? Because she doesn't like me. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to ride again. I was physically still like not in a good place with my
Hmm.
knee. So I was honestly like, maybe she wants me to sell her because she has so much potential and I cannot give her what she wants, because I think that she wants dressage and jumping, right? Because that's what we learned that horses want for some reason. And and then I'm asking Shaylee, like, is this what she wants? Like, does she want to be an athlete? Because I bought her technically to be an athlete. Is that what she wants? And do I need to sell her? Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to provide this to her. And that's why it's been so hard to connect with her, because I don't know how to connect her with her otherwise. Like, I cannot provide her what she needs, quote unquote, right? And then Shaylee's
As an
like,
athlete or and a dressage
yeah,
horse.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Shaylee is like, no, she's showing me these images of you brushing her. She's showing me, and that was so beautiful, because she's like, she's showing me something weird, but I'm gonna share with you. I'm like, okay. She's like, she's showing me herself with flowers on her head, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's our annual thing. Like every between May and June, because her birthday is in May, mine is in June. So this year it's like something that we have scheduled for next week.
Ooh, okay.
We do this beautiful photo shoot where I put flowers on her head, and all we do is like we're like taking photos together, right? And she has like a little, like sometimes she has a crown, made of flowers, and so she's showing that to Shaylee, and she's saying like, this is what I like about our time together, like being brushed and have flowers and feel pretty with you, you know? And I'm like just crying, right? And crying and crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, so she doesn't want to be an athlete. Like she actually wants that quality time together. I can provide that to her. I don't need to sell her, right? Um, so
You
that was
know,
like
just
just like everything.
you and I have talked a lot about the parallels between kind of our journeys and how people who come into your world as a client are often paralleling. And I'm just listening to you and I'm sensing some of those parallels even because Ugo, well, he had gone to the ER in February of like whatever, a year and a half ago now, not quite a year and a half ago. And then literally a year to the day of when he came back from the ER is when he severed that tendon. And I was just crushed because I was just like, oh my gosh, like we just made it through this recovery from his whole ER visit. And then a year in, he does something else. And I think because he's keeps trying to because I keep losing track of what he's been trying to show me, right? But I remember when I first signed up for you with you to do your mentorship, and I remember going, I just wanted him to be able to be a horse. And you said something like, well, maybe that's not what he's here for. Like I'm thinking he needs to be, sound so he can be out being a horse. And you're like, but maybe that's not what he came here for. And I was like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, obviously at this point I've kind of already accepted that his dressage career isn't going to be what I thought it was going to be because he's been so prone to these injuries. But fascinating, really, that yeah, every time that I start to get a little off track, then he has to get, I shouldn't say a little off track, probably when I get bigger off track, then he does something big to get my attention. But yeah, that we have these ideas of what we think our horses want, and but really we are here to learn something else from them or and have them guide us. How would you explain that? Having them guide us to what our true potential is or
Yeah, like I like to call it like a co-creation process. That's what I'm learning like with Amelia. Like it's a co-creation. Like it's not us like deciding how it's gonna go. It's like co-created in the sense of like it's a co-decision or it's a shared decision making with your horse where um there are things that you think you want but they are essentially showing what you actually need. So
mm,
it's that difference between what you think you want and what is actually needed for you to grow and to evolve. So when I say, hey Amelia, like I want, dressage and jumping because I think that that's what I want. She's like, no, actually, for you to grow as a human and for me to grow as a horse, what we need is actually not to do dressage and jumping, is to, build this other path where you're an animal communicator and we work together, through Alchemy Queen, right? So, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds fun. We can do it, right? But I haven't even considered until she brought it up, right? So I
yeah.
think that it's that play between what we think we want or what because we our ego always think that we know the best, right? But then the moment we stop and allow space for the horses to share their ideas of the potential of a co-creation that you can do together, then it's a whole different story because then it comes from a place of like your higher self, not from the ego. So it is like a place where you're actually going to grow and you're going to evolve and you're going to heal through this partnership, right?
So yeah, how did you know like when you started so you weren't showing up in the world as an animal communicator, you weren't thinking of yourself as an animal communicator, and then all of a sudden was it after Elements of Connection, then you started to get the messages from Amelia too? And what does your intuition look like? Like, because I know some people get the visuals or some people get
Mhm.
just the knowing or how was she coming across for you?
Yeah. So going back to the path of like becoming an animal communicator, going back from like with Shaylee, I discovered there is such a thing as animal communication. right?
Right.
Because I didn't know even that was a thing, right? And and then parallel to that, because I had a dog who had just transitioned, Maya,
Mm.
and she was connecting with me and nudging me to start this animal communication certification course.
Mm.
And I'm like, yeah, that should be fun for me to communicate with you. Like, if that's what we're gonna do, yeah, that should be fun. But I didn't think it in that would become something like professional. Like, I just thought about like in the way of like this is gonna help me reconnect with Amelia. This is gonna help me connect with my dog who has transitioned, right? So I just leaned into it and I'm like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And I remember going back from the clinic, I was like, oh my gosh, like what Shaylee does is amazing. If I could choose anything in the world to do, that's what I would like to do. And then, of course, the shadow, and the limiting beliefs stepped in and like, oh yeah, maybe next time, next lifetime when I'm born an animal communicator, that can happen. But right now, go read tarot, go read people's energy because this is what you're meant to do, right? And and that's the crazy thing, right? Because then I'm hearing from my horse, like I'm receiving messages from my horse, I'm receiving messages from my soul dog, and I still don't think that I can communicate with animals. Like what the heck, right? So then I'm like, okay, let's do the tarot, let's do the readings for people because that's where I feel comfortable. And then as I'm doing this, people's animals they start to show up. Like their dogs, their cats, their horses, they start showing up in the readings. And they're like, hey, lady, we have a message, it's about us. Like, can you please listen to me? And I'm like, oh, sure. And then I start bringing this to the clients, right? Like what the animals are bringing as, with the reading that I'm doing. So I'm reading the energy and bringing also the messages from these animals. And I'm doing all this work. And then one day I was like, why do I think I'm not an animal communicator if this is what I'm doing, like both personally and professionally? Right? There was this such a huge imposter syndrome. And then to your question, how I get information,
Yeah.
I think that that's why I struggled so much identifying myself as an animal communicator, because the way that I receive information is pretty much the knowing. It's like knowing. I just know things. So for me, it was very confusing in the beginning to know, do I know because I know? Do I know because this animal is sharing it with me? Like, where is this? Like, what's the source of this information? Do I know because I'm channeling from elsewhere, or do I know because I just know? Right. So the
Mhm.
knowing for me, is the trickiest of the types of psychic abilities because of the self-trust piece, because you struggle believing that you're actually receiving information, right? So it took me a while to play with um, me getting information, and then am I getting information, am I not getting information, and then, for example, going through sessions with animal communicators and then have them essentially validate what I was receiving. So they would share what they are receiving, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was receiving, but I thought I was making it up, right? And
Mhm.
then through the points of connection, you're like, oh, so my intuitive sense is the knowing. So that's why I'm struggling with understanding that this is animal communication. And then once I was very much acceptive of this ability of knowing, because a lot of people get hooked up on the idea of like, I want to see, I want to hear, right, the other types of intuitive senses. And for my reference up to that point with like experience with Shaylee and the other communication animal communicators, it was the actual, like, you receive the sentences, you receive the visuals, like that kind of stuff, and I wasn't receiving that way. So I thought I wasn't an animal communicator. But then the moment I realized the knowing is also a way to communicate and I embraced that, then I started, like, it was like this. Suddenly now I'm seeing, I'm hearing, like all the other senses, like I allow the other senses to develop, right?
They started to
Mhm.
open up also. Once you
Mhm.
accepted that you were receiving it through a knowing.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's where I struggle too, because I sometimes, yeah, I think I'm making it up, or it just in historically speaking, if I shared something that I feel like I know, and then somebody'd say, "Oh no, you're just projecting that onto the horse, or you're just, like
Mhm.
other people not necessarily believing that." But I'm like, yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm like, no, no, I know this though. Like
Mhm.
it is, it's hard to define it as something black and white, I guess. Interesting. And it's fascinating to me that A, you didn't know there were animal communicators prior to meeting Shaylee, but B, you were already doing energetic work. Like, when did that start? When did you start doing readings for people and all of that? Like, was that in the process when you
Yeah.
were healing, or was that before that?
That was before, like my relation. Like I started with tarot. Like I have a really, I don't know, intimate relationship with tarot cards. I don't even know how like that became a thing. I remember just like one day, it was deep winter in Edmonton, so minus 30 something Celsius. So and it was just like I don't know, what am I gonna do this winter? Like it's gonna be quite boring to stay inside the house. And then I went to this metaphysical store and I got a tarot like a kit of like tarot cards. And like there was this one in particular just caught my attention. I brought it home and it just felt so natural. Like I didn't go through any like formal learning. I just like learned how to use by using it essentially.
Hmm.
Just felt very natural. And I remember like it was the time just before getting Amelia actually. And I had that was my very kind of first kind of interactions with tarot because I would have a lineup of horses that I would gonna visit. Like I had like in total, I think I visited like probably 20 horses. And for each horse before seeing them, I would do a tarot reading
So you
about
were doing
our
you were doing tarot for horses? Wait, what?
yeah, so the tarot I would I would use the tarot to read about the horse's energy.
Okay.
Yeah, now that you're putting it that way, I'm like, gosh, like, yeah, I never realized that that's what I was doing. But yeah, like I would do like a tarot reading to read about their energy to see what their energy was like. And then I would do like another one to see about our relationship, like the interconnection between their energy and my energy. Like, what does that give me? Like, or that give us, right?
Mhm.
Is it a good fit? Is it a good match? So essentially, that's how I was using tarot cards.
But
And I did
who
that
were
for
these
all.
who were these horses that you were doing this with?
No, those are potential horses that I was gonna like. I was like
Oh,
just horses that I was gonna
look at to buy.
look at to buy.
I
Yes,
see. Oh, wow. Interesting though.
yeah. And I would
Okay.
do that before visiting them because I didn't want to bias my interpretation of the tarot cards by what I was
Oh.
seeing, right? So I would do the reading, get my notes, and then depending on what I'm getting from the tarot cards, I would visit. And then I would, see like is this aligned with what I saw with my tarot cards and so on and so forth. And it was really interesting because it was so precise, like so freaking precise. There was this horse that I loved and I thought like this is the horse. And the tarot cards was saying like, yeah, like your energy together is a match, is like great, but there is something really wonky about it that is
Hmm.
not gonna work. And then there was like, and I was really happy that I was very, you know careful with the process because then during the vet assessment, the horse had a very
Mm.
severe problem. She had navicular, so it was like a very, very severe case of a navicular. Um, so
So you
the
were
like
doing
it
this
was
before you even were thinking about animal communication, you were doing this stuff.
yeah, because I
Yeah.
didn't know
Just
animal communication was a thing. Like I thought, tarot was a thing.
interesting. How,
Yeah.
for people, I mean, I know you and so I guess I have just two questions. So you are from Brazil originally. How long have you lived in Canada now?
It's going to be 8 years this year.
8 years. So you moved to Canada from Brazil. And we can talk about that too if you want, but like, do you feel like this intuitive ability, is it something that you could come from like a bloodline of being, is it in your family kind of a thing, or what did I know you mentioned something about your mom. What
Yeah.
did that look like?
Yeah, so it's interesting because, well, um, even like moving to Canada, that was 100% of an intuitive decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly didn't Google anything about the city that I was moving because I wanted it to be a surprise when I arrived. Uh, I
Okay.
just felt this is the place that I need to go. I have a blessed husband who was like, okay, I trust you, let's go. uh, but
Wow.
yeah, so the intuitive part, like it has always been part of my life. As a kid, I remember like seeing ghosts and I was
Really?
so afraid and I shut that off completely. And I still don't open that channel because I don't like that
Wow.
part. I could connect with my animal in spirit, like animals in spirit I can connect and I welcome them, but people in spirit, like I'm not comfortable with that. But that's how, like, as a child, that scared me, and that really, like, I said I don't want this, and then I disconnect all my channels because of that for a while. Then I started opening again with the tarot, but very limited because of the science, background and the science construct that I
Mhm.
had around me. Um, but in terms of like my family, like my my family don't have any close relationship with religion or spirituality.
Hmm.
I have a grandmother on my parents' side who was very psychic. But
Hmm.
at the time that she was alive, it wasn't like it wasn't something that we talked about. It wasn't something that it was very open either. So I didn't have a chance to really explore that personally with her. Um, but when I started working with tarot, I had this very strong sense of this comes from a bloodline. Like I have a strong sense that
Hmm.
I don't know, in my intuitive senses, I think I have roots with like some gypsy lines that worked with um um that, just like not just tarot, but like seeing the future. Like this is something that happens to me. Like after I open my channels, like nowadays I can see, like I saw my house before I bought my house. I saw my horse trailer that I just got before getting the horse trailer. I saw my car before getting the car. I saw even Amelia before getting Amelia. I saw that it was going to be a bay mare. Like well, like there are things that I see before they happen. So I
Hmm.
think that comes from kind of like a gypsy bloodline, but this is like me with my intuitive senses telling me like it's kind of like a family secret, maybe. Like I don't know.
I was just curious because I don't know. Yeah, I mean the whole being from Brazil and just having this really innate intuitive gift that you are now, embracing, which you weren't. But yeah, the ghost part. How do you know, like, for people who like, because I come from a real religious background, so for me delving into this is taken a lot of, I don't know, like I had a lot of beliefs that were blocking me from even allowing myself, like the idea of tarot cards, like I would think, ooh, that's something evil, like you're not supposed to mess with that stuff. So how would you explain that to people, per, I mean, just even I guess animal communication in general, but even any of those things, like how do you know that you're tapping into good energy,
Mhm.
versus dark energy, or however you would want
Yeah,
to explain it?
yeah. The way that and lots of different people work different ways.
Mm-hmm.
What I, how I work and how I think I function is, and this is a great, great, great learning that I got from an indigenous elder the other day that I feel like it summarized a lot of my approach. So this elder said, put energy where there is energy, never where there is resistance. And I thought that that summarizes a lot of my intuitive approach as well. So if I want to connect with um, like pure light energy, or if I want to connect, with, I don't like the kind of like the polarity of good versus evil. Like I think that that's a construct, a man-made construct on itself. But if I don't want to deal with dark energy, and I want to, tap into light energy. It's a lot of people, I feel like sometimes the problem is that they focus on the not, I don't want to connect with dark energies, right? And the I don't want to connect with dark energy is putting energy where there is resistance, where you don't want. Why would
Mm,
you put energy where you don't want? Forget about
mhm,
that. So forget
mhm,
about that and put energy on, I want to connect with light energy,
mhm,
right? So for
mhm.
me, like, I don't even consider the possibility of connecting with dark energy because that's not what I want. So I don't even think about that. I don't even put energy there. I put energy on, I want to connect with light energy. And the more I put energy on, I want to connect with light energy. And the more I say, this is my intention is to connect with light energy, the more I create an energetically safe environment around me because now I'm vibrating that light energy. So then I'm attracting light energy, right? But if I'm worried about the dark energy, then I'm vibrating dark energy and I'm bringing that in, right? See
Gotcha.
how it's like,
Yeah.
it's just like, for me, it's just like putting energy where you want, not where you don't want. So for me, because it's never been, and I think that is probably the good part of not having a religious background or not having like a formal, like rigid background, is no one, like, I've never heard from anyone around me that tarot is evil. So I didn't have that belief, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, tarot, this is cool. That these cards look beautiful. I'm gonna create something beautiful with it, right? So I'm putting
Yeah.
energy in the light aspect of
Yeah.
tarot. If people use tarot for, not good things, like, I don't know, because I've never even paid attention to that. I'm not wasting my energy there, right? So
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of my approach.
I think is you also something that I've been learning in my own journey, and you mentioned it, is the intention is so, like, what I've learned is really intention is everything. Like your intention is everything. Um, and another thing that you've talked about in the psychic mastery class that I'm in with you, or mentorship, I guess is what it is, right? I'm in this mentorship with you. Is that you said the belief, would you say that the belief is like 80% of it and that the
Hmm.
technique is 20% of it? Do you feel like
Yeah,
that applies in general, just to animal communication in general?
totally. Like anything that you do, like, I like to think of this 80-20 rule where it's like 80% is your belief, 80% is your trust, and then 20% is the actual technique. Like
Mm-hmm.
for example, all the techniques that I use and all the techniques that I teach, not all of them, but like 90%, at least 90% of the techniques, I either like channeled or I developed them with my animals. Like they just came to me, right? So when you navigate your own intuitive journey, like there will be techniques that you're going to learn from someone, but in most of the cases, you're just going to adapt those techniques to what functions best for you, right? And that is the beauty, is like you exploring your own way to relate and connect to energy, which is going to be very unique because you're a different person, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I feel like technique is like the 20%. Like there are things that is like you want to make sure that you're grounded, that you're clear, that they're protected. So it's kind of like the overall protocol is kind of like universal. But then how you ground yourself, how you protect yourself, how you clear yourself, it's more about like your intention to clear, protect, and ground than anything else. But because we have a lot of time constructs of how it should be or how it cannot be, sometimes it's good to start with a protocol that someone teaches you. Like, for example, how we do in psychic mastery. Like, I teach how to do those things in a protocol that I know it's safe and I know it's easy, I know it works. And then once you're comfortable with in that realm and you start develop your self-trust, you develop to develop your ability to even build your own intentions, then you're going to refine those techniques to whatever technique work best for you. So it's all about, yeah, go, it all goes back to the intention, it all goes back to the belief. um because this is what energy is, right? A thought, what is like what is energy? Like a thought, like when I think about an apple, like I create this image of an apple in my head, is already triggering certain parts of my brain that corresponds to that image of apple. So I created like this apple feeling and this apple energetic circuit within myself by believing that I'm doing that. Isn't that like crazy to think about? Like, and it's so simple, but like it I just love how like it's so simple. Like it should not be complicated, right? If it's complicated, again, you're putting energy where there is resistance because it should
Mhm.
not be complicated.
Yeah. No, that makes sense too. One thing, I've noticed, so since I started the mentorship with you, because I'm actually, gosh, I mean, I think we're going into month 5.
Mhm.
Wow. And in the beginning of our time together, you were, and this has been a theme. I mean, it's not like it just started 5 months ago, but I was still struggling with it 5 months ago. The learning to just be and not do. Like I'm
Mm,
so task oriented and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And I'm starting to just try to be with my horses more and be with Ugo more. And I think that a lot of times these injuries and these things that he keeps doing is to shift me back to learning how to just be with him. And I was going to tell you, I don't think I already told you, but like these last 2 weeks are actually, it was Saturday, so 2 days ago. I was with Ugo and I was just taking him for our little walk that we've been doing. And he's always been a horse that's been a little keyed up. Like he's a cold-backed horse. He's like, even when I was competing him, I had a very special protocol to getting on him so that he wouldn't take off bucking. It's actually how I got him. He was actually given to me because he was cold-backed. But he's always been a really, like, I don't know, like his energy was just really intense. And like where Xena and I could just sit and be together, Ugo and I had not figured out how to do that yet. And so what's really fascinating is that 2 days ago I was with him and he was the calmest he's ever been. I kind of let him just kind of lead the way and he was so calm. He was so happy. And we were just walking around, eating grass, walking around, eating grass. And all of a sudden I realized that everything in my vision field seemed more crisp and clear. It might seem like a small moment, but it also seemed like a really big moment because I was like, wow, the trees look, everything just looked more in focus. I don't know how to explain it. And I thought, is this what I've been searching, like trying to get to this place where I am
mhm,
more present? Like I'm more in the moment and I'm more present. And I feel like that's what happened. Um, and a couple weeks prior to that, actually, I was riding with a client and I heard these birds singing, or we saw this little bird, and I was like, oh, that's a really pretty bird because I've been really more in tune with nature since we started this mentorship, and I had asked for some signs, and then like I've been getting all these nature animals showing up randomly that I wouldn't ever even see. But anyway, I noticed this one little bird this particular day, and my client, she had this app on her phone that listened to the chirping noise of the bird, and then she's like, "Oh," and she told me what kind of bird it was. But what was interesting is after that, all the birds singing was suddenly really loud and like I heard it like before it had just been like background noise. But now all of a sudden I was listening to the birds in a much more present way. Like I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just really cool. Like I feel like it's part of this evolution of me learning how to be more present than
mm,
I previously have been, just so busy and just rushing through the motions and yeah, doing all these classes and doing these things and learning what I'm supposed to be doing to make these things happen, but yet not really finding that place
mhm,
until just maybe within the last 2 weeks where I'm like, oh, something that definitely is starting to feel like it's shifting and it's more significant. And I did think, because I'm on my own journey on this animal communication, I know you and I have talked about it a lot, where I don't feel like I'm an animal communicator, even though I can see all this evidence like you had. Well, I have evidence that I'm doing it, but I still don't feel like I'm doing it. But I did have this kind of a little download epiphany that like, yeah, I just need to be more present and it's just going to naturally happen without me trying for it so hard. So, I don't know why I just felt like I needed to share all of that, but that's also been a part of my journey with you is just taking the pressure off, I guess, to do less and truly be more and not do more. Like you keep encouraging me to do that. So I don't know if you had
Mhm.
any comments on that, but
Yeah, well, I have lots of comments. First of all, that's super cool. I love that for you. And the like this is the main theme that I see with clients. Animals, horses, dogs, cats, they are constantly bringing awareness to their person and say, hey, can you do less and be more? It's like just that shift between the, the busy mind, the busy doing, to just being there in the moment. And so, story, there is this beautiful um, story that comes from many different cultures, many different cultures. No one knows like the actual source of that story. Very recently I saw that this story, you can track back to the story over 200,000 years ago, so like it's like super old, this story. And it's the idea that there was a time where nature, humans, animals, we were all one, and we all sat on a circle together where we were equals. At some point, humans decided, I'm out. I'm not going to be part of this circle anymore. So they leave and decide that they are going to be doing something else. Then the animals, they decide that they want to try to bring the humans back. So the first animals that say, hey, we want to volunteer to bring them back are the horses and the dogs and what we call the domestic animals. So they are the ones that go after the humans to try to bring them back to the circle where we are one again.
Mm.
So the work that is happening now, especially now where we are going through this gigantic, you know, planetary transition with Earth, this is the moment in time where more and more animals are really like trying to do this work with their humans. So for example, Ugo, when you say like Ugo is trying to bring me back to being versus doing, and suddenly by doing that, now I can hear the bird, I can see the tree, and it's so much sharper than ever because you're returning to the circle. He's bringing you back to the circle, and it's so freaking beautiful. Like I love this. I just love this. And I've been studying a lot the different dimensions, and there
Mm.
is, so Earth used to be in 3D, and Earth is transitioning now into 5D. So we, since 2012, like we're transitioning into 5D. And you can see that a lot of us, we started our awakening around this timeline. Like 2012 was a year that a lot of us started like noticing something different. And then now are really like, oh my gosh, there's like so much more than science can explain, or so much more than I can see with my eyes, right? So it's because of this transition with Earth going into 5D, there is this invitation for us to also raise our consciousness to match this new dimension. Otherwise, if we are vibrating 3D, so if our consciousness is in 3D and Earth is 5D, like there is kind of like an impact on our physical bodies. Like it's hard for us, physically speaking, because it's not the same frequency, right? So there is this invitation through illness, through animals, like through different things that, so if you're experiencing challenges with your animals, or if you're experiencing challenges with your body, chances are it's an invitation for you to match with 5D. What is 5D? So if 3D is what we can see and touch, what is 5D? 4D is the what I when I talked about the archetypes, this is 4D. This is the collective unconscious. So when I say mom, someone here knows what mom means. Someone in Japan knows what mom means. Like everyone from the globe, regardless of their culture, they know what mom is because mom is an archetype. There is this understanding of what it is, right? So this is 4D, this collection of collective thoughts and ideas. You being able to tap into your emotions, this is 4D. So it's very simple. And this is the gateway to 5D, which is the unified field. We are all one. So going back to the circle. So it's really interesting because that is the one day Amelia and my goat Didi, who is the reincarnation of that soul dog that I mentioned, like the very next day that Didi arrived, the two of them took me into this multidimensional trip where we went 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D. And when we tapped into 5D, what you just described is what I felt. I could hear all the birds. It was so loud. I could see like everything so vivid, like things, everything felt alive. And I was like, oh my gosh, like all of this was here. Like, and this is where I'm noticing. So this is what you're describing is like Google taking you to 5D, which is super cool, right?
Yeah. So when you said that Amelia and your goat took you, were you like in an intentional meditation when that happened, or what did that look like?
So I was with Didi. So Didi
Hmm.
came and then she just put her hooves on my feet, like exactly like on my feet.
Okay.
And then I could see that Didi was like, it was almost like she was going on a meditative state. Like it was weird.
Okay.
And then I saw like Amelia, like she just like came and like, oh, I want to join you. So she comes and then she puts her head over the gate. And now it's like the three of us there. And then I see that Amelia is also going into that same frequency. Like I can see that their vibration is now different. Like they're both, like not that it's almost like that processing stage that
Yeah.
horses go sometimes, but not, it wasn't processing per se. It was almost like sleeping, but not sleeping. So the only way that I can describe it is how for us, like meditation looks like.
Yeah.
So I could see that they are doing that and I feel an invitation from them, like join us. So I just tried to just like relax my body and relax my mind. I'm a person who meditates with an open eye. I don't know.
Mm.
Both opens. Oh, but both eyes open. I don't know. That's how I like to meditate. So I had my eyes open the whole time, but I was able to enter that same frequency like with my mind that they were at. So
And
the
then they took
moment
you
we
on this
matched,
journey.
yeah, the moment we matched the frequency, the three of us, then suddenly like they took me like to 2D where I could actually feel. So 2D is the elemental energy. So I could feel like some fairies around and I could feel the elemental energy like very strong. Like I could feel like they were like right here. And then from them, they took me, it's almost like they took me to my body where I could feel my body, but it was a different sensation. It was like just a feeling of the body, so 3D.
Mm.
And then I feel then going into 4D, which suddenly is almost like I can tap into like all the knowing on the like collective knowing. And then the 5D where then I can see like everything connected. And there is also like this feeling of I it's like you like when you're trying to describe, like I don't have words to describe, like that's, it's hard sometimes to describe, but I had this feeling of yeah, like I could feel the connection, like I could feel like this web of consciousness that connects every single being on earth. Like I could just feel that in my body. And then the like the sharpness of the colors, the light and the birds, and then yeah, like as you described, like suddenly like there's like hundreds of birds like flying. Like
Yeah.
they were literally like there was a flock like flying over as like this was happening, right? So you're like, what the heck? Like suddenly like it's like I have never done drugs in my life, but I feel like if I had ever done drugs, that would probably be how things would look like, like
Uh-huh.
Alice in Wonderland, where it's like everything is
Yeah.
like, this is surreal. What's happening right now, right?
Yeah. And I think that's fascinating that, well, I think it's a good reminder of why slowing down and just, yeah, having the space to just be with them in that moment, you were able to experience that. Whereas if you were on an agenda and, oh, I got to get here, like how I've lived most of my life, I got to go do this. I got to, oh, sorry, I don't have time for that right now. I got to go do this. Then you miss those opportunities to really connect with them, which is, I think, obviously my magical horse and this mission that I'm on is I'm trying to help people find ways to find that way of being or that space so that they can basically improve and grow a more beautiful connection with their horse. I know we're kind of running up on our time, but do you want to tell the story real quick about just how Ugo came to you before I
Oh,
came to
okay.
you as a
Yes.
client?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was, I don't remember which month it was this year. I think it was December or January, so pretty early in the year, just before you connected with me. So I was doing this meditation and I was, just connecting with energies, and I was just like feeling into like what was coming next in terms of, Alchemy Queen and the new offerings that I was developing, like just tuning into like again, because I like to tune into like the timelines, just kind of like a feeling of what's to come, how should I prepare myself. And then there's this white horse, or gray, I should say, not white, that comes in. And and I had this feeling like this is the next horse that I'm gonna be helping. And he comes and he confirms, like, yeah, like I'm gonna bring you my human, and you're gonna help her, like help me help her, and we're gonna, help each other. And I'm like, cool. And but then it left, and I was like, but who are you? Right? I was like, but who are you? And then I tried like to think about like the white horses or the gray horses that I know, and I couldn't really, I'm like, I don't know who it is. I don't know if I know any gray horses. And then I think it was just a couple of days later, like you texted me, and I think you were asking something, but we weren't like, solid on anything yet. And the moment I looked at your photo, I realized, oh my gosh, the white horse, like the gray horse is hers, like it's Ugo, right? And then I got like a super, like a confirmation from him, like, yeah, I'm coming. And then you in that exchange, like you're like, yeah, if you're ready to jump into the mentorship. And I was like, ah, yeah, I know you're ready now.
Yeah, yeah. It was just so fun when you told me that, like on our first session, or I think it was when you told me that story. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I know, so two things. Is there anything that I've missed asking you about? I haven't really looked at my list. Do you feel like we've missed anything major that you want to
I
talk
feel like it's
about?
pretty complete. Yeah.
Okay. So I know I want to give you an opportunity to tell people about all your offers, and Mariana's got a really cool website with a lot of amazing offers, and I've really enjoyed, even she does these little mini boost sessions with my horses as part of our mentorship, and that's been really enriching. I love it. But before we get to that piece, do you have just, and I kind of maybe know what you're going to say, but if you had one piece of advice to give to our listeners of what they could do to improve their magical connection that they are hoping to build with their horses, what would you tell them to do?
Yeah, I would say, well, I'm gonna cheat and say two things.
Okay.
One is just trust yourself. Just trust yourself. You already know how to do this. You're just in the process of remembering. And two, don't try, like don't force it to happen, or like try like, or think of there is a certain way that it needs to happen. Just allow it to happen. So it's again that conversation about the be versus do. So don't do it Like, don't force it to happen, just be. And just by being yourself and being present in your animals, like, you're gonna see that it just naturally happens. I can tell by my own experience with my animals that if I, because all everything that I do in terms of Alchemy Queen, it's done collaboratively with Didi and Amelia. So if I say today I'm working on this offering or in the development of X, and then I sit with them and ask them, what do you want from this offering, or what do you want from this, I get zero response. If I don't do a planned agenda of what we're going to talk about, and I don't even come with the intention to talk about anything or talk at all, and I'm just there with them, as this example of us going through this multidimensional trip, I was just there and it happened. If I just come there and I'm like, okay, guys or girls, let's hang out, then they come and say, hey, I have this idea about, this program or this practice or this and this and this and this and this. So it's the idea of, you don't have to do anything for that to happen. It can come organically just by being with your animal. And the more you just be with them with that open energy of, I'm just here. If you have something to share, cool. If you don't, cool as well, without the expectations, and then trusting what you get, that you're getting what you need to get, then like perfection.
Yeah, and I think I've known so many people now on my journey that their animals are their horses are the ones that have led them to whatever business that they're doing. I mean, so many people, but I think for me too, the key is that you have to get quiet enough. You have to let your mind get quiet enough that you can hear it
Mhm.
too, right? Because if you're
Mhm.
too busy doing, you're not gonna hear it.
Yeah.
But can you tell people how they can find you, or if you have anything you want to say about how your offers work, go
Mhm.
ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I do anything related to animal alchemy. So it's like essentially support the animals in the process of awakening their humans, in helping them um, convene the guidance and the messages that they need for mutual growth and mutual healing. So that goes all the way from like one-on-one sessions where I do the animal connection, the animal communication, and get the guidance, all the way to the mentorship program where I'm actually like helping people to remember how to do that themselves. So it's kind of like a space where there are options that depend on where you are in your own journey with animal communication, right? If you need more targeted support, or if you're wanting to grow that and strengthen that ability even more. And lots of the work, as Jordan described, has to do with like mastering your own energy. So we do a lot of that energy work in terms of like um, just knowing how to work with your energy, because that's what in my journey I felt like I struggled so much. So I wanted to create something, so people don't struggle as you're opening your channels and as you're saying yes to your intuition. Like, it can be loud at times, or it can be confusing. So the idea is to give like a solid foundation of how to access those gifts, how to lean into your intuition in a way that it feels safe, it feels good, it doesn't feel overwhelmed, like, and that you can trust because it's clean enough, that it makes sense for you. So that's kind of my style. And as I mentioned earlier with Amelia, is the whole idea of the Alchemy Queen, of like you becoming your inner, your queen, you becoming the queen of your inner self, you're becoming your own queen, so your own authority. So you're not looking externally to find the answers, you're looking within yourself. So this is a big part of the program, like the finding of your voice and the sharing of your voice. So yeah, so that's kind of my style.
Yeah.
You can
I
find me, my Instagram is alchemy alchemy, alchemy underscore queen underscore. And my website, let's leave in the notes for
yeah.
the show if possible, because also I'm transitioning into a new website
Oh,
pretty
okay.
soon.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
I
But
can
it
put
will
that in the
be
show notes.
alchemyqueen.ca.
Okay. Yeah, I can put that in the show notes. And yeah, I was just gonna add to that is like definitely that's, I think, why I was led to you at this stage of my life is that I have a lot of information and knowledge, but yeah, me learning how to trust myself and my own intuition. And you've been really a great guide, I guess, if you will, of helping me learn to trust myself. And that's been huge instead of me looking out to everybody else. Which, I mean, it's good to learn things, but also it's good to get to know your own inside. How would you word that to
Yeah, tap
your,
into your own power, right?
yeah,
Like
your
like
own,
we all have like this power that we typically project outside of us. So we spend our lives looking for that power in other people when it's actually a power that we have inside of us, right?
yeah.
So it's kind of for sure like allowing yourself to learn and to learn from others with their own experiences and their own abilities, but always coming back to that inner power and tapping into it. And it's kind of like you go, you learn, and then you bring, and then you make wisdom, because this is the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? You might get knowledge from other people, but then it only turns into wisdom once you internalize that knowledge, and then you transform that into wisdom, right?
That's beautiful. Yes, exactly that. I love it. Well, thank you so much for doing this today, and I'm glad we could chat. And I just appreciate you. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
What a fascinating conversation we just had with Mariana at Alchemy Queen. To find out more about Mariana's offerings, check out our show notes. And we'd also love to have you as a part of the My Magical Horse community. To visit us, go to www.patreon.com/mymagicalhorse. And if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to follow, like, and share. Until next time, namaste, friends.